Hello there. I welcome you all once again to the Tax Clinic with Habib. On today's edition, we are going to be discussing about the Nigerian tax system. So, before we started disturbing yourself about the amount of tax you need to pay or whether the government is going to be deducting tax from your bank account, I think you need to pause and try to understand how the tax system in Nigeria works. Now, as we all know that in Nigeria, we operate a federal system of government. So that means we have a federal government at the top level, we have the state government, and we also have the local government authority. The same way, we have three tiers of tax authority in Nigeria. We have the Nigerian Revenue Service (NRS), formerly known as the Federal Inland Revenue Service. We also have the State Internal Revenue Service across the 36 states in the Federation. Also, we have the Local Government Revenue Authority. Now, the reason why it is very important for you to understand the tax system in Nigeria is because you need to know the tax authority you are dealing with out of these three tiers of tax authority we have in Nigeria. You need to understand the people you are dealing with in a particular transaction. For example, now, if the tax you were supposed to be paying should have gone to the Nigerian Revenue Service and you mistakenly pay it to the State Internal Revenue Service, then you have made a big mistake because paying it to one tax authority does not cover the tax you were supposed to pay to another tax authority. So that means you have to still pay the tax to that particular tax authority you were supposed to pay it to in the first place. So it is very important you understand how the tax system works. So now let's go into it. Let's take it one after the other. Now let's start from the Nigerian Revenue Service (NRS). The Nigerian Revenue Service is in charge of administering and collecting tax that is due to the federal government of Nigeria. The type of tax the Nigerian Revenue Service collects includes the company income tax. The company income tax is the tax on the profits of incorporated business in Nigeria. For example, if your company is operating under a limited liability company license or even a public limited liability company license, then you should know that your company income tax, that is the tax on your profit, on your annual profit, should go to the Nigerian Revenue Service. Also, one of the tax that the Nigerian Revenue Service administered is the petroleum profit tax, also known as hydrocarbon tax in Nigeria. So these are the tax on the profits of those companies that deals in crude oil. It might be the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream sectors we have in Nigeria. Those that deal with petroleum products. So the tax they are going to be paying on the profits also goes to the Nigerian Revenue Service. Also, one of the key important tax that is being collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service is the value added tax (VAT). So VAT on goods and supplies is also administered and collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service. So it doesn't matter the state the VAT occurs, it is collected by Nigerian Revenue Service. And also another tax that is being collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service is the tax on the pay as you earn for all our armed forces we have in Nigeria. It might be the police force, it might be the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Navy, all armed forces we have in Nigeria. The tax on the salary is being collected by the Nigerian Revenue Service. Another key important tax that the Nigerian Revenue Service administered is the tax of non-residents. So what I mean by non-resident is that if you are not a resident in Nigeria, but you make your profit from Nigeria, probably maybe you are working for a Nigerian company, however, you are reside outside Nigeria. So your tax and your tax on your profit should be going to the Nigerian Revenue Service. So if you look at the Nigerian Tax Administration Act of 2025, Section 3, you're going to see the tax jurisdiction of the Nigerian Revenue Service and the taxes they can collect. It. So let's move on to the state internal revenue services. For the 36 states we have in Nigeria, they all have their own internal revenue service that administer and manage the tax that is due and collectible by state authority. So, for example, we have the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service for Lagos State. We have the Ogun State Internal Revenue Service for Ogun State. We have the Kwara State Internal Revenue Service. In fact, we have across all the 36 federations, including FCT. Now, let's go through the approved tax collection list for state government through the State Internal Revenue Service of each state we have in the federation. So, one of the core tax that is being administered and collected by the state government is what we all know as pay as you earn, PAYE. So, the PAYE for residents of the state, for all residents of that particular state, is being collected and administered by the state government. So now let me explain what the PAYE means for you. So when you are a salary earner and you work as an employee of a particular company, it might even be for a government institution apart from the Nigerian Armed Force. So your employer will pay you after they deduct tax from your salary. So the tax they are deducting from your salary is going to your state internal revenue service. For example, I work in Lagos State and I also reside in Lagos State. So my employer deduct tax every month and remit it to the Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. So one of the core tax that is being collected by the State Internal Revenue Service is the pay as you earn taxes. So another tax the State Internal Revenue Service collected is the self-assessment tax for for unincorporated business we have in the state. So if you have a small business that is not being incorporated as a limited liability company or a public limited liability company, so probably maybe it's just a sole proprietorship or even a partnership, the taxes on the profits of your business goes to the state internal revenue service. There are some other tax that is being administered by the state internal revenue service, such as the withholding tax on individual transaction, or we can even say withholding tax on or of residents in the state. Also, we have the capital gain tax on individual transaction. We also have the stamp duty on documents executed by individual in the state. So those are the category of the tax. There are all other taxes too that are being collected by the state internal revenue service. So if you go to the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, Section 3, Subsection 2, you are going to find the list of the tax, or you can check the first schedule of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act. You will find the list of tax that are being collected by state internal revenue service. So let's move on to the last revenue authority we have in Nigeria. So when we look at the local government tax, so the first thing is that there is a local government revenue authority that administer and collect tax that is due to the local government. The list of the tax collectible by the local government revenue authority is enormous. It's a lot. So I'll just list out few. So one of the core ones is the shop and kiosk tax. So if you have a shop in your locality, or let me say a kiosk, so the tax is being collected and administered by the local government authority. So another one is the tenement rate. You know, as an individual, if you occupy a particular house, it might be a own house or even a rented house, you're supposed to be paying a tenement rate that goes to the local government revenue authority. Also, the birth, death, and marriage registration fee in the local government is collected by the local government authority as well. We also have some other taxes like if you park on the wrong space in your locality. So the fee, the penalty is being collected and administered by the local government. The list is on and on as well. So if you check the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, the first schedule, you also see the list of um, taxes administered and collected by the local government. So I hope you learn one or two things today. Now, based on my explanation so far, you will see that there are different tax collected by different revenue authority in Nigeria. So now note, you might be dealing with one or more revenue authority at the same time, depend on how your business is structured. For example, if you have a limited company now and you have lots of employees, you have employees. So now you know that when you are doing your annual return and when you want to calculate the tax on your profit, you might be dealing with the federal inline, sorry, the Nigerian Revenue Service. So in terms of your company income tax, you'll be dealing with Nigerian Revenue Service. However, for your employee, in terms of remittance of their tax on the pay as you earn (PAYE), you are going to be dealing with the state internal revenue service. So don't say because you are a limited company and you are going to be dealing with Nigerian revenue service, you won't be dealing with other revenue authority. You might be dealing with them at the same time. So another thing I need you to know is that in terms of dealing with tax authority, all tax authorities have their own jurisdiction and the tax they can collect. However, a particular tax authority can collect or administer a tax that is not under its jurisdiction on behalf of another tax authority. For example, now the state internal revenue service can authorize the Nigerian revenue service to collect the PAYE tax on their behalf. So now note the authorization. Like the Nigerian Revenue Service needs to get authorized by the state internal revenue service before they can administer the tax not under their jurisdiction. So this is according to section 3, subsection 3 of the Nigerian Tax Administration Act. So I hope you've learned one or two things in today's edition. If you want to know more about Nigerian tax, kindly subscribe to this channel because I'm going to be dropping a lot of hints on how you can navigate the Nigerian tax landscape easily. Thank you very much for listening to this, and I hope you have a lovely day.